Today, the U.S. economy grew solidly in the third quarter, but it's still voters' main concern. And how election officials are preparing for November 5th with ramped-up security.
North Korea tests an intercontinental ballistic missile, and the scientists bringing the face of a woman buried as a vampire back to life.
It's Thursday, October 31st. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes every weekday. I'm Christopher Waljasper in Chicago.
And I'm Tara Oakes in Liverpool. First, to the issue which has proved most important for US voters across the spectrum this election, the economy. And data shows the US economy continues to grow, with consumer spending increasing at its fastest pace in a year and a half. The optimistic snapshot comes days before Americans cast their vote for president. Our economies and markets editor, Dan Burns, is in New York. Dan, did economists expect to see the sort of growth we're seeing in the GDP report?
It was a little softer than the consensus estimate among economists, but not by much. We've had people predicting that this economy would drop into recession for the last 2 years because we had high inflation that the Federal Reserve had to beat back with high interest rates. And what usually happens in that scenario? A recession. It didn't happen. The job market is held up. Consumer spending is held up. It's not an economy that's going to fall off into a ditch.
But polls show that people continue to have a negative view of it. What's the disconnect here?
I've been for the better part of 2 years calling this the sourpuss economy. And that's because no matter how well it does, everybody has a frowny face about it. And there's really one word for why: inflation. And that led to high prices that have stuck around. They're not going down. And that's a corrosive effect on consumers and consumer attitudes in particular. And while inflation is going the way policymakers want, and it's back toward target, it has left the economy with high prices that are still too close in that rearview mirror for consumers and voters to forget about.
Donald Trump continues to falsely claim that he won the 2020 presidential election, and he signaled that he could contest a possible loss to Kamala Harris. This rhetoric is priming his supporters to distrust the voting process, which, as we saw on January 6th, could have volatile consequences. States across the country are taking drastic measures to try and ensure everything goes as smoothly as possible on Tuesday and beyond. Reporter Joe Tanfani has been speaking with election officials across the country on how they're preparing.
So what they've done in the past 4 years to prepare for this presidential election is to fortify, literally, their election offices. They've added security. They've added fencing in some places, barbed wire, bulletproof glass to protect them. They are concerned about potential violence around the counting of the ballots.
Now, Trump has targeted a few Democratic-leaning cities in swing states. Here he is at an Iowa rally last December.
So the most important part of what's coming up is to guard the vote. And you should go into Detroit, and you should go into Philadelphia, and you should go into some of these places, Atlanta, and you should go into some of these places, and we got to watch those votes when they come in.
How are officials in some of these cities thinking about what's coming next week?
One thing that they are very focused on is to try to get the ballots counted as quickly as they can. In 2020, of course, it was a pandemic election. Tons of people voted by mail, more than they'd ever experienced before. One thing they really want to do is to get their numbers out quickly in order to tamp down any disinformation, any kind of narrative that there's some kind of steal going on. They've all made plans with police and security officials to make sure that their operations are secured. In Philadelphia, they've moved out of the center of the city to a much more remote location. So they're trying to make sure that the count goes as smoothly as possible and that their workers are protected and secure.
How do you like my garbage truck?
Yes, that's Donald Trump sitting in a Trump-branded garbage truck in Green Bay, Wisconsin. wearing a bright orange safety vest to highlight President Joe Biden's garbage gaffe. Biden's Tuesday comment, in which he appeared to describe one or some Trump supporters as garbage, undercut Kamala Harris's unity pitch. Biden says he was referring to racist comments by a speaker at Trump's rally, referring to Puerto Rico as an island of garbage.
H5N1 bird flu has been found in a pig for the first time in the United States. Pigs represent a particular concern for the spread of bird flu because they can become co-infected with bird and human viruses, which could swap genes to form new dangerous viruses that could more easily infect humans.
Lebanon's prime minister says a ceasefire deal with Israel could be reached within days. A proposal leaked by Israel's Cannes network has Israel withdrawing its forces from Lebanon within the first week of a 60-day ceasefire. Hezbollah's new leader, Naim Qassem, has responded, saying the group would agree to a ceasefire within certain parameters if Israel wanted to stop the war.
North Korea says it's launched an intercontinental ballistic missile test. The missile was in the air for nearly an hour and a half, making it the longest test by North Korea before it splashed down west of Japan's Okoshiri Island. The LA Dodgers have won the World Series. In a surprising comeback, the Dodgers won Game 5 7-6 after the New York Yankees prevented a sweep in a Game 4 blowout. This is the Dodgers' second World Series win since 2020. The Yankees' last championship was 2009. Now over to markets, and it's a week dominated by Wall Street's big guns. Stocks with so much swagger, they've earned a nickname conjured from Hollywood's golden age. The Magnificent Seven. That's Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla. Now, Apple and Amazon will report results to Wall Street today, picking up from Meta and Microsoft, which reported on Wednesday. Tesla got things rolling on a high note last week, exciting investors with bold EV sales forecasts. Alphabet kept the momentum going earlier this week by beating profit and revenue estimates on strength in YouTube ad sales and its cloud business. But it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Microsoft and Meta both flagged ballooning costs from AI investments, making investors antsy about what Amazon will have to say on the topic. Now, you can track the latest data with our nifty Magnificent 7 monitor on Reuters.com or the Reuters app. And I'm not just sitting in for Carmel Crimmins today on markets. I'm also guest hosting for her on Econ World this week. Check out our latest episode on carbon trading. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts.
Now, would we leave you without a scary Halloween story? Nevermore. Gather round. Buried with a padlock on her foot and an iron sickle across her neck, Zosia was never supposed to be able to come back from the dead. Entombed in an unmarked cemetery in Pien, North Poland, the young woman was one of dozens feared by her neighbours to have been a vampire. Now, using DNA, 3D printing and modelling clay, a team of scientists has reconstructed Zosia's 400-year-old face, revealing the human story buried by supernatural beliefs.
These people burying her, they made everything they could in order to prevent her from coming back from the dead. And we have made everything we can in order to make her come back to life.
That's scientist Oscar Nilsson. He says the analysis of Zosia's skull suggests she suffered from a health condition which would have caused fainting and severe headaches, as well as possible mental health issues.
When they said it was a vampire, I got, of course, both a bit scared in a way, and also I got the idea that I would try to make her as a human and not as this monster that she's buried as.
For today's recommended read, we take you to Pakistan, where surfers are making waves on social media in a nation dominated by cricket and hockey. You can read more about their struggles with messy waves and unimpressed parents in the show description.
For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. To never miss an episode, follow us on your favorite podcast player. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.